Today we're going to be looking at perhaps one of the most famous enemies of Godzilla. Many people believe that the Kaiju was able to kill Godzilla, but most of the real G fans know better. The monster was able to kill Godzilla Jr., but his death was short-lived. You should know by now that the Kaiju I'm talking about is Destoroyah, or Destroyer, although many of us who are fans of YouTube simply know him as Destoroyah! This was Godzilla's final fight of the Heisei series. It looked like Toho planned to possibly do more movies with Godzilla Jr. absorbing the death energy from Godzilla and growing into a full-grown Godzilla, but we didn't see any more movies until the Millennium series. Destoroyah has many forms, but when he reached his perfect form, he comes in at 120 meters tall, or almost 400 feet tall. He weighs 80,000 metric tons and is over 230 meters in length, or around 750 feet. As a comparison, Godzilla in this film was only 100 meters tall, or around 330 feet, and he only weighed 60,000 metric tons. Destoroyah began its life as a colony of Precambrian era microscopic crustaceans. Back in the original 1954 Godzilla film, Dr. Serizawa uses the oxygen destroyer to kill the first Godzilla. The resulting conditions revived and mutated these crustaceans. Over the next 40 years, they evolved into the first forms of the Kaiju we now know of. Perhaps the most important aspect of Destoroyah is its ability to change forms. The Kaiju began its life as a microbe in its micro form, but the first form of the Kaiju we see in the movie is the crawl form, which is often confused for its micro form. The third stage of the creature is its juvenile form. In this form, Destoroyah is no longer microscopic in size. This is the form that we see attacking the armed soldiers, and I can't help but notice the heavy influence that the film Aliens played on this part of the movie. We can even see the soldiers using motion trackers, smart gun-like guns, and flamethrowers. On top of that, this form even has an inner jaw just like the xenomorphs do. The creatures then combine in order to form the Aggregate. This is the larger form of the juvenile form with two additional crab-like claws on its head and new appendages on its back. Next up, we get the flying form. This form is similar to the juvenile and Aggregate, except for that with this form, the Kaiju has wings that allow it to fly. The last form, but possibly not the final form, was Destoroyah's perfect form. The Kaiju finally stood upright on two legs and more resembled the type of Kaiju that we're used to seeing Godzilla fight. It should be noted that the theater program for Godzilla vs. Destoroyah noted that the perfect form may not be the final for the Kaiju. Destoroyah was also one of the more stronger Kaiju to face Godzilla. With its sheer size and strength, he was able to knock Godzilla around fairly easily. The Kaiju was also able to reform its body after taking enough damage. He doesn't quite heal like Godzilla, but when damaged enough, he will regress into a lower form in order to heal. One of the creature's most devastating weapons is its micro-oxygen beam. In its smaller form, this weapon was able to disintegrate organic matter and penetrate metal. Once the creature reached its Aggregate form, the beam became much more powerful. When in its juvenile and Aggregate forms, the Kaiju possessed those secondary jaws we talked about earlier. These can be used to directly inject micro-oxygen into a victim or even drain their life energy. When in its perfect form, Destoroyah can use its tail to drain the energy. The laser horn is possibly one of the more vicious offensive capabilities of Destoroyah. It is an energy weapon that emits from the horn on his head. The blade is capable of cutting Godzilla's flesh and even slowing down his regeneration. Although unused in the movie, in the deleted scenes, Destoroyah can be seen using a stomach beam, as seen here in concept art. The attack was used in the manga adaptation, where it is able to cut through Godzilla's tail and even break several of his dorsal fins in just one shot. Another lesser known ability of the Kaiju is DNA Absorption. This ability was noted in the Godzilla vs. Destoroyah Super Complete Works book. In the film, the ability is used to absorb Godzilla Jr.'s DNA, which allowed him to change into a bipedal form. Destoroyah is not only one of the most powerful Kaiju in the Godzilla universe, but he has evolved to be the perfect weapon to destroy Godzilla. This makes him one of the best matches to defeat Godzilla, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't have his own weaknesses. Some of the smaller forms were defeated with fire, but it should be noted that while in its perfect form, the Kaiju was able to take many blasts from Godzilla, including the spiral blast from his burning form. The blast was eventually able to damage Destoroyah, but he held up better than many other Kaiju would have in the same instance. Instead of heat, his major weakness is extremely low temperatures. While many people think that Godzilla or Godzilla Jr. was able to kill Destoroyah in the film's climax, his death can be attributed to the attacks from the ULT or ultra low temperature weapons from G-Force. One could imagine that Kiryu's Absolute Zero weapon would wipe out Destoroyah, but that weapon would seriously damage almost any Kaiju. So what do you guys think about Destoroyah? Is this one of Godzilla's most powerful enemies, or would you give that nod to Super Mecha Godzilla, Space Godzilla, or another Kaiju? With the Oxygen Destroyer being teased for the upcoming legendary Monsterverse, do you think it's possible that we'll see Destoroyah in the legendary universe? I sure hope so. And if you guys have any questions or comments, let me know down below and I'll do my best to answer those. If you liked the video, if you could leave a like, it helps out the channel so much. And if you haven't subscribed yet, why not subscribe for all the future Godzilla goodness to come? Take care, and I hope to see you next time.